My family ordered the most expensive dishes and said, "You're our ATM." The $3,000 bill left them speechless. But what I did after that, it turned the entire table against me, and I don't regret a second of it. Stay until the end to find out what happened to them. The Bloomberg terminal bathed my face in a soft neon glow as I reviewed the projections for McClellan Asset Management's next quarter. Numbers never lied. They didn't manipulate. They didn't ask for more than they deserved. Unlike people, especially family. I adjusted the collar of my blazer, the one with a faint coffee stain from Monday's early meeting, and skimmed through one more client proposal before my phone buzzed. Again. Mom. "Hey, sweetheart. Just a tiny issue with the water heater. $920 for the plumber. Can you spot me until next week?" I didn't even blink. I just opened my banking app and transferred the money into her account, tagging it under family emergencies. Though emergency had lost meaning after the 10th time. I didn't ask what happened to the savings Mom always bragged about. I didn't ask why I was the first and only contact when money was involved. When the text from Dylan came 10 minutes later, I almost laughed. Dylan. "Sis, I hate asking, but can you shoot me 1.5K? Need to renew biz license. Last time, promise." A lie, as usual. Just last month, he'd needed $600 for client onboarding materials, which turned out to be a new PS5 and a trip to Montreal. I didn't reply. I didn't send. Not yet. The day crawled forward. Conference calls, portfolio reallocations, strategic projections. I solved a $12.4 million exposure for a major energy client before lunch. But by the time I walked into my apartment, small, clean, sterile, I felt like I'd aged 3 years in 8 hours. Jasmine arrived 30 minutes later, as she always did on Fridays, with 2 cartons of Thai and a bottle of wine neither of us could pronounce. She walked in, tossed her coat over the chair, and kicked off her sneakers. "Tell me you didn't pay Dylan." I sighed, curling up on the couch and grabbing the chopsticks. "I haven't, yet." She raised one brow. "Yet?" "He said it's for a business license." Jasmine snorted. "Yeah? He just posted a photo at Sienna's lounge drinking mezcal and calling himself Crypto King 2023. I didn't even bother to check. I knew she was right. She always was. But the part that stung wasn't the lie. It was that I'd expected it. Jasmine settled in across from me. "Let me ask you something. If your name wasn't on their credit cards, would they even call you?" I paused. The silence felt heavier than the wine. "I don't know," I finally said, voice quieter than I meant. "Maybe not." We ate in silence after that. Pad Thai, coconut rice. My hands moved, but my mind ran loops through memories. Dylan crying over a totaled car after his DUI. Mom pleading over the phone because her bridge work was falling apart, and she couldn't smile in public. Me using my rent money to help, then eating instant noodles for a month. They always said just this once. But once had turned into a decade of overdrafts and delayed dreams. I was mid-scroll through emails when it came. "Mom, dinner this Sunday, 6:30 p.m. at Giovanni's. You're treating, right?" I reread it 3 times, hoping I misunderstood. "Giovanni's?" I muttered aloud. Jasmine leaned over and read the message. Her mouth formed a flat line. "Oh, so now it's not just money. It's dinner at a place where the cheapest pasta costs $38 and water isn't free?" I laughed, but it was hollow. "It's probably a birthday thing for Dylan." Jasmine didn't smile. She put down her food, looked me square in the face. "You ever gonna say no?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because deep down, we both knew the truth. I could say no to overpriced handbags, to coworkers I didn't like, even to dating apps. But not to them. Not yet. Paige stares at the screen, then whispers, "Maybe I won't go." But she knows she will. I dressed up for a family dinner. They dressed me up as their bank. Giovanni's glowed like a gold-tinged promise against the cold Boston air. I stood outside for 3 full breaths, counting the seconds between inhales like I was about to walk into a deposition, not dinner. The hostess greeted me with a smile too practiced to be real. Party of 5? They're already seated, right this way. Of course they were. As I followed her past marble pillars and chandeliers that shimmered like chandeliers always do when you can't afford what's beneath them, I saw them. My family. My audience. My creditors. Karen was already mid-laugh, one hand wrapped around a wine glass that likely cost more than my week's groceries. Dylan leaned back, phone in hand, grinning like he belonged there. Tessa was adjusting her napkin like she was filming a lifestyle vlog. I slid into the only empty seat. Finally, Karen beamed. We started with some wine. You love this brand, right? She poured without asking. I actually stopped drinking during the week, I murmured. Oh, don't be uptight, she said, brushing me off like lint. It's a family celebration. What exactly are we celebrating? I asked, scanning the table already littered with appetizers. Calamari, charcuterie, truffle arancini. They hadn't even looked at the menu. They'd just started ordering. Dylan's new LLC, Karen announced proudly. He's really turning things around. My brother lifted his glass like a champion. Here's to entrepreneurship, and to my biggest investor. He winked at me. Tessa giggled. You're so lucky, Paige. I mean, I wish I had a sister who paid my bills. I felt the laughter press against my ribs like a trapped animal. Jasmine caught my eye across the table. She hadn't said a word yet, but I knew that look. Calm. Recording. She reached beneath the table, subtly adjusted her phone, and tapped her thumb. Start. Karen raised her glass again. To Paige, our family's little rock, always showing up with her card ready. The table erupted in cheers. I smiled. Tight. Hollow. My jaw ached. Dylan called over the waiter. We'll take the Wagyu, medium rare. Oh, and add the truffle mashed and a bottle of that '08 Barolo. Make that 2 bottles, Tessa chimed, and I'll have the lobster risotto with the caviar add-on. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Every time I tried to speak, someone reached over me, ordered over me, spoke over me. I wasn't part of the conversation. I was the currency funding it. Karen turned to me and added, I always said Paige was born responsible. Like our little walking ATM. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't need to. Her phone was already catching everything. And that was it. That sentence, delivered with a smile, with affection even, snapped something so quietly inside me I almost missed it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was done. We made it through the entree, through the dessert, through the espresso shots no one needed but everyone ordered. I watched the check come like a slow-moving guillotine. The waiter placed the black folder gently between Karen and me. Karen didn't even look. She pushed it toward me, elegant fingers sliding it across the linen like a ceremony. It's what we always do, she whispered. Dylan raised his glass. Cheers, sugar mama. I blinked once, then calmly pulled out my phone. Text to Jasmine. Start the file drop. They thought I'd swipe my card like always. I'd already cut it in half. The waiter lingered beside me, polite but expectant, the black leather folder still resting just inches from my elbow. The room had softened since the earlier noise. Some parties gone, some servers clearing tables. The laughter had faded. All that remained was the bill and the weight of what came next. I reached into my purse slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a card. Karen watched me like she always did when I paid. Detached, entitled, almost bored. Then she blinked. The waiter ran the card through the reader. A pause. Another swipe. He frowned, turned the screen toward me. I'm sorry, miss. It's been declined. I didn't blink. I'd deactivated the card that morning. Karen sat straighter. What's the joke? I looked at her, and for once, I didn't look away. The joke, I said softly, is that you think I'll keep paying for your cruelty. Dylan sat up. Whoa, what's going on? Jasmine leaned back, arms folded, unreadable. Calm. Karen gave a strained laugh. Don't do this here, Paige. I tapped a button on my phone. From Jasmine's speaker, placed carefully in her clutch, came a clipped recording. Karen's voice, unmistakable. I always said Paige was born responsible. Like our little walking ATM. The table froze. Karen's smile faltered. That was a joke. So was I, apparently. Dylan scoffed. Seriously? You're recording us now? I turned to the waiter. I didn't order anything tonight. Not a single appetizer, not a drink. I'll not be paying. The restaurant manager appeared within seconds. Thin, composed, professional. Is there a problem, miss? I faced him calmly. I was invited here under the assumption it was a family dinner. I didn't order, and I made it clear I wouldn't be paying. They're welcome to split the bill however they wish. He glanced at Karen, who'd gone pale, and Dylan, who looked lost. I'm afraid someone has to settle it, the manager said evenly. Karen slammed her napkin on the table. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done? You raised me? I asked. Number you raised your expectations. I just funded them. For a moment, no one moved. The silence cracked louder than any scream. I think we're done here, I said quietly, standing up. Jasmine followed without a word. We walked out past the maitre d', past the mirrored bar, past the family I no longer felt part of. The air outside was sharp, but clean. Back at my apartment, the city was quieter. Jasmine plugged in her laptop, and I poured us both tea. She didn't ask me if I was okay. She knew I was more than okay. I opened my inbox, attached the audio clip, and added a subject line. To Nathan Bell. Subject, ready body, ready to initiate. I have everything we need. They call me an ATM. I print out the statement. And this time, everyone will read it. Nathan Bell's office was quieter than usual. A hush that didn't feel empty but waiting. Heavy. The kind of silence that fills a courtroom just before the verdict is read. I handed him the final envelope. Cream-colored, thick with 7 years of documented betrayal. He adjusted his glasses and glanced at me. You weren't exaggerating. I never do, I said. He opened the first envelope. Inside were monthly statements from the secondary card Karen had opened when I was 22, back when I still believed helping was a synonym for being loved. His eyes moved line by line. Neiman Marcus. $3,450. 4 consecutive charges to a spa in Miami Beach. Jewelry store in Boca Raton. Paige, none of these are yours? No, I said, voice steady. She told me it was for groceries, a few home emergencies. Nathan didn't speak. He just turned the next page. Flight receipts, hotel bookings, a recurring charge from a yacht rental service. Jasmine leaned forward and tapped the laptop. We ran everything through OCR, labeled every line item. Here's the spreadsheet index. Nathan scrolled. His brows twitched. And this, I said, opening a folder of printed screenshots, is Dylan's electronic loan application, co-signed under a joint card he applied for using my name. I never authorized it. Here's the bank's confirmation he used an IP address tied to his condo. Nathan set the pages down and exhaled through his nose. I'd ask how long you've been compiling this, but I think I already know. 3 years, I said. I didn't move sooner because I wanted to believe they'd stop. Jasmine's voice was low but razor sharp. They only stop when the account dries up or someone calls them out. I nodded and reached for the stack of printed PDFs. Each one bore the same watermark at the bottom. Do not deny. I have the original. I opened my laptop. 1 folder, 5 emails. Karen Monroe, Dylan Monroe, Tessa Monroe, Uncle Bryce, Aunt Evelyn. Each one had dipped into me over the years, some loudly, some with soft sighs and guilt-laced apologies. But they'd all done it. I attached the files without hesitation. Subject line, your transactions, in your name this time. Jasmine placed a hand on my shoulder as I hovered over the send button. Nathan broke the quiet. If they react poorly, rage, threats, legal retaliation, I want your permission right now. I will forward everything to the IRS, the FTC, and the Financial Fraud Unit. No hesitation. You have it, I said. I clicked send. 5 little zips into cyberspace. Years of silence converted into indisputable proof. I felt weightless, like shedding skin. 30 minutes later, back at my apartment, I logged into the joint account and revoked every secondary access. Karen, Dylan, Tessa, all of them. Gone. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it buzz once. Twice. And then I declined the call. They call me an ATM? I print out the statement, and this time everyone will read it. Nathan Bell's office always smelled faintly of old paper and quiet consequence. I sat across from him, a thick folder balanced on my lap like a second spine, one I had spent years building. He unfolded the first page with a care more fitting for antique letters than bank statements. But maybe that was the point. These documents were my history, the kind you don't frame but can no longer ignore. 7 years of records? He asked, not looking up. 7 years, 3 months, and 12 days, I replied. All secondary cards, all under my name. Jasmine sat beside me, laptop open, fingers dancing across keys as she prepped the backup archive. Every file was color-coded, indexed, encrypted twice. She had insisted. No one's deleting your truth, she said earlier that morning. Not this time. Nathan scanned the first few statements, silent but increasingly still. $2,400 to Neiman Marcus, 2 charges at Canyon Springs Med Spa, 4 monthly recurring charges to Blue Horizon Yacht Rentals, Florida. He paused. I assume none of this was you. No, I said, but Mom always insisted they were family emergencies. For Dylan's recovery, she said once, when I asked about a $900 spa visit. He nodded slowly. They used your financial credibility like oxygen. I slid the next folder across. That's Dylan. He submitted a loan application to Brentwood Bank 3 years ago. Used my credit score through a joint line. Falsified co-signature. The approval email went to my account. I didn't even know until I got a notice for non-payment. Nathan's brows furrowed. How did they access your information? I exhaled. Back when Dylan had his second business collapse, Mom told me she needed my documents to file for financial aid on his behalf. I was 25 and stupidly hopeful. I handed them over. He shook his head, leaned back. This is layered. And Federal Jasmine chimed in, eyes still on the screen. Each document is scanned, time-stamped, and backed up to 3 clouds. I also attached metadata so no one can claim forgery. I opened the final envelope. Inside were 3 letters, one to Karen, one to Dylan, and one addressed to those who took more than I gave. Each letter contained a curated packet of financial data, every page watermarked in bold font, "Do not deny, I have the original." Nathan read the watermark and let out a low whistle. What are you planning to do with these? Email. Today. Individually. I looked at him. They won't be able to deny it. I won't give them the room to twist it into some overreaction. He nodded once. If they threaten or retaliate, legally or personally, do I have your consent to escalate? To the IRS, the Financial Crimes Division, and the local fraud office, I said. Immediately. He glanced at Jasmine, then back at me. I have to ask. Why now? Why not earlier? I leaned forward, resting my palms flat against the table. Because I needed to know I wasn't just angry. I needed to be sure I was done. He said nothing more. He didn't need to. We packed up in silence. Jasmine tucked the hard drive back into her bag and gave me a small nod. The kind that said, let's finish this. Back in my apartment, I lit a candle. Not for ambiance, but because the lavender scent helped keep my hands from shaking. There's something ritualistic about reclaiming control. Quiet, sacred, necessary. One by one, I opened the emails. One by one, I attached the files. Karen Monroe, Dylan Monroe, Tessa Monroe, Uncle Bryce, Aunt Evelyn. Each message began with a single line. Here is your history, this time with receipts. I paused at the last email. The one addressed not to a specific name, but to a pattern. To those who took more than I gave. That one I blind copied to myself. As I hovered over the send button, Jasmine walked into the room with 2 mugs of tea. You ready? She asked. I didn't answer. I clicked. Once, twice, 5 emails. Gone. I set the laptop aside, closed my eyes, and felt my shoulders release tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. Jasmine took a sip of her tea and looked at me over the rim of her mug. They'll know you mean it now. They'll know they can't rewrite the past, I said. 30 minutes later, I logged into the joint accounts. Some I hadn't dared touch in years, afraid I'd find overdrafts or worse. I revoked every access, locked the cards, changed every password. Karen, Dylan, Tessa, all gone. No more fingerprints on my identity. I was halfway through deleting old notification rules when my phone rang. MOM all caps, like always. I let it ring. I let it fill the room, sharp and insistent like a dog whistle meant only for guilt-trained daughters. Then I pressed decline. And this time, I didn't explain. It wasn't my screams, it was my silence that scared them. Karen sat across from me in a booth that reeked of cinnamon and nostalgia. She looked like she had aged 10 years in 3 days, hair pinned too tightly, foundation failing to hide the tiredness beneath her eyes. Her hands clutched the coffee cup like a lifeline, but she hadn't taken a sip. I didn't say anything. I let the silence expand, awkward and heavy, until she couldn't take it. This isn't you, she said quietly. Paige, this vendetta, it's not who you are. I stirred my tea slowly. Is it a vendetta, or is it accountability? She blinked fast, eyes glassy. It was a misunderstanding, a mix-up. Your father and I, we only ever wanted to give Dylan a chance. You were always stable. You could afford to help. I couldn't, I said. You just never asked if I could. You assumed I'd figure it out. Karen's lips pressed into a line. She pulled out her phone. I've spoken with Bryce and Evelyn. They're worried too. You made this a public affair. Your aunt is furious. I smiled softly, the kind that didn't touch my eyes. Funny, I don't recall any of them worrying when you were siphoning off my credit for flights to Aruba. Her fingers clenched. You're exaggerating. I pulled out the envelope and slid it across the table. She recognized it immediately. The statement. And beneath it, the document she hadn't seen yet. Karen looked down. What is this? A draft lawsuit, I said. Not filed, but ready. Her face paled. You're threatening me? No, I said, voice flat. I'm informing you. If you don't stop, if I hear of one more account, one more card, one more ask, then the law will continue. Her mouth opened, closed. Paige, I'm your mother. I know, I said. And when I needed you, when I called from that clinic after Dylan's accident begging for help, you were silent. She looked away. Now it's my turn. When I stood to leave, she didn't stop me. And that silence, that bitter, shaking silence, was the loudest she'd ever been. At the office, the fluorescent lights felt less clinical, less hostile. Jasmine was waiting by my desk with her phone in hand and a smirk playing on her lips. Well, she said, you've officially gone viral. I froze. What? That clip of your mom calling you the family ATM? Some alum from your college posted it in the Women in Finance forum. It hit LinkedIn. You're not named, but the sentiment? It's resonating. I didn't know whether to laugh or vomit. Jasmine leaned closer. And you know what? There's a thread full of women with the same story. Quiet supporters, all watching. Before I could reply, Janice from operations popped her head around the cubicle. Paige? The boardroom wants you. Great. I entered with my heart hammering. My manager, Claudia, stood by the window, arms crossed. Sit, she said. I did. We've been restructuring the finance leadership team, she began, tone neutral. Your work on the Swanson recovery plan caught attention. Efficient, precise. Sharp, I waited. She turned. We'd like you to head the new strategy division, effective May 1st. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. You're serious? She smiled. Congratulations, Director Monroe. By the time I left the room, I felt still. Not elated, not overwhelmed, just still. I was building something now. For me. That evening, I sat on my balcony as the sun dipped low, casting the city in apricot light. My phone buzzed. Email from Citizens Trust Bank. Subject, account change notification. All co-owner access, revoked. Secondary card, ending in 5519. Permanently closed. I stared at the words like they were a foreign language, and slowly the weight of what they meant began to settle in my bones. Not symbolic. Final. Another buzz. A message from Dylan. Dylan. You won, but the family is gone. I looked at the screen and didn't respond. I used to be afraid of the debt alarm. Now I wake up to my own alarm. It was a soft chime. Not the panicked beeping of overdrafts or fraud alerts or 3 a.m. calls about emergencies. Just the gentle rhythm of a life no longer hijacked. Sunlight filtered into my small but sunlit office. More community hub than corner suite. Jasmine moved briskly between folding chairs, arranging packets titled, No Guilt Money, Building Boundaries, Not Budgets. The projector glowed, waiting. Outside, the trees in Boston Common were beginning to bloom, petals caught midair like confetti. A new season, the first one in years where I didn't brace for someone else's crisis. The door opened and people filtered in. Early 20s, late 30s, a few still in business attire. Some held coffee cups like armor. Others kept their heads low, eyes scanning for judgment. I understood. At exactly 10 o'clock, I stepped to the front. I didn't clear my throat or clutch my notes. I just stood there, grounded. Welcome, I said. This isn't about money management, not really. This is about reclaiming what the debt took. Your voice. A quiet murmur, a few nods. I used to think I owed my family everything. They raised me, fed me, loved me in their way. So I paid. Every time. Rent, credit cards, legal fees, vacations I never went on. I paused, let it settle. But I wasn't giving out of love. I was paying out of guilt. And guilt, I said, is the worst kind of currency. It never clears. Jasmine sat near the back, arms folded, smiling gently. She knew this version of me. She'd helped carve it out. Halfway through the workshop, a young woman raised her hand. She looked barely 20, hoodie sleeves pulled over her palms. My name's Sarah, she said, voice barely above a whisper. How do you know? How do you know you don't owe your family anything anymore? The room stilled. I looked at her. Looked into her, maybe. She was me, 5 years ago. 10. When you realize debt isn't love, I said, and when you stop mistaking silence for peace. She swallowed and nodded. By noon, the workshop was buzzing. People exchanged emails, shared stories. Someone created a group chat on the spot. No Guilt Money had officially begun. Later that afternoon, I sat on a park bench, sunlight warm on my face, laptop open. I drafted a blog post, fingers moving freely. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. Financial freedom doesn't begin with money. It begins with the courage to stop performing debt as devotion. The messages poured in faster than I could respond. One from a teacher in Oregon, another from a nursing student in New Jersey. All versions of the same question. Is it okay to let go? Yes. 1,000 times. Yes. As I started to log off, a notification popped up. Internal intake alert from the Foundation's free resources portal. Name: Karen Monroe Service requested financial counseling request. Type: budgeting and behavioral debt management. Note: none provided, no plea, no demand. Just her name. Just a form. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I smiled faintly, closed the laptop, and pulled out a small notebook. The one I only opened when something felt final. I wrote in pen, slowly. Freedom doesn't start with money. It starts with the decision to no longer carry anyone's emotional debt. What began as quiet compliance ended with a silence that finally made them listen. Paige didn't shout or beg. She documented, she exposed, and she walked away with the truth on her side. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. Perhaps standing up today means you'll never again have to bow to injustice tomorrow. If this story moved you, consider liking and sharing so I can keep creating more stories like this.